Okay. So let me kick it off. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in this exciting event. Thank you for joining our annual UX Show and Tell. I'm Chuong. I'm a PhillyCHI chair for 2020. And we typically do event in person in Philadelphia. But tonight we do in online. And so you all can join us from all around the world. I've seen people from joining us from Tokyo, which is really exciting. I'm a big fan. And France, England, like Denver, it's really exciting for us to see you guys make time to join us tonight. So every year we and their fine folks from Think Company team up to do our show and tell. And the goal of this event is really showcase all of the goodness of the work that our UX colleagues in greater Philadelphia area been doing this year. So I'm really excited to present to you all this event. And again, thank you for joining. Before we kick this off, Ben, or content strategist, will start telling a little bit about us and what's the event look like. Ben, do you mind to take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Chuong. Hi, everyone. I'm Ben. So for anyone who might not be familiar with PhillyCHI, our group's purpose is to connect the local UX community by organizing monthly educational and networking events. You can read a little bit more about who we are here. You can see our mission and approach is that we dedicate our work to a culture of knowledge sharing and building a strong UX community for Philadelphia. We're also committed to supporting a positive and respectful environment for everyone to come together and talk about UX. So if you witness any unacceptable behavior, please notify one of the PhillyCHI board members in the chat. You can also email us at phillychi@gmail.com. You can also see some of our social media channels there too, and you should definitely follow us. So our schedule tonight is here. We're really excited to hear these five great speakers, four speeches. Each will be 15 minutes long, followed by a 5-minute Q&A. And be sure to stick around till the end when we will be raffling off 3 great books from Rosenfeld. And now I'll pass it to Christine to go over some event logistics.
Hey, I'm Christine. I am the Vice Chair of PhillyCHI for 2020. Just want to go over a few logistics and ground rules for tonight. First and foremost, all attendees are muted by default and your video will be off. Please use chat for general discussion and any comments. If you're posing questions for the presenters, please use the Q&A feature so that we can clearly see which questions are being asked. If you pose a question, we will try to unmute you so that you can ask the question yourself. And if you prefer not to speak, please tick the anonymous box to hide your name in the channel. Please use the like feature to upvote the best questions to increase the likelihood of them being asked publicly. And lastly, this event will be recorded and shared online. We will follow up with an email after the event with that link. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We want to give a shout out to our sponsors. A shout out to tonight's event sponsor, Think Company. Thank you very much. And a shout out to our 2020 annual sponsors as well. So Think Company, Slalom, Guru, Vanguard, Harrisburg University, Drexel's College of Computing and Informatics, and Rosenfeld Media. I'm going to hand it off to Lorraine now.
Hi everyone, I am the treasurer of PhillyCHI and I wanted to let you know about an upcoming event we have on Tuesday, September 22nd, so mark your calendars. We're going to do our annual UX Design Slam, and what this is it's a remote collaborative design challenge. So it's a free event. You can sign up, and in the event, you'll be working to solve a problem that the company built, that the nonprofit Build a Bridge has. So you'll be working with teams. It'll be really fun and really exciting. So feel free to register for that event. Okay. Now we're going to do what we like to call job time. So if anyone on the call is looking for a job, or if there's anyone on the call who is seeking talent, we'd like to give you this opportunity to let others, to announce that at this time. So what you can do is in the chat feature on Zoom, you can either post a link to your LinkedIn if you are looking for a job, or if you want, you can even raise your hand right now, and what we'll do is we'll unmute you so you can share what you're looking for. And again, if you're a company that's hiring, you can post a link to that job description in the chat channel, and you can raise your hand right now if you'd like to share a little bit about that position with everyone. And because we are a local organization, we do typically like to stick with the Philadelphia area. Looks like we have a couple coming through. So yeah, so you can look at the chat as well if you want to see what people are looking for, or what companies are looking for, or who's looking for a position. I don't think anyone raised their hand. Is that correct, Ben? Or yeah, okay, I think we can continue.
Jessica March just raised her hand. I just saw it. And Paul too just raised his hand.
Okay.
Hi, Jessica. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, so Jessica Gamache from Capgemini and Vent, formerly Electronic Ink, if anyone's been around for a very long time. We are just starting our search for some junior to mid-level UX designers. So we're finalizing the post right now, but that will be coming out in the next couple of days. So I'll put my information if you guys want to connect with me on LinkedIn. So we are part of a large consulting firm, but we are a small UX design group that works with both internal business design platforms, and then also some more consumer-facing work. Where there are about 20 of us in Philly. We have an office right in Center City. So I will post my info and would love to hear from anyone on the search for a job.
Awesome, thank you. Ben, can you put Paul in there, unmute Paul?
Let's see. I'm seeing one person who I just unmuted. Go ahead and talk.
Hi, is this me? I can't tell if I'm the
Yes.
one. Hi, my name is Brittany Dysons, and I'm from the Creative Group. We are a creative staffing company. We're currently recruiting on over 20 freelance and permanent UX and design roles. So definitely would love to connect with anyone looking. I'll put my email and my LinkedIn page, but variety of different roles. They're all local to the Philadelphia and the suburb areas. And most of them are remote, obviously, currently, but always looking for local talent and looking to connect. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands. Chuong, do you see anyone on your end that you can unmute?
I don't see anything because I share my screen, but I believe there's 3 hand raised, so make sure that you don't miss one more person. Oh, Suhadi Scruff just raised hand.
Sorry, Chuong, I'm only seeing 2 on my end.
Okay, so maybe
If there is a third person with their hand raised, you can drop that information into the chat channel, and we'll make sure to look at it there.
Yoti to shake your hand? Maybe, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so if you didn't have chance to talk, please drop your information in the chat channel.
All right. So I'm up. Sweet. Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle. I am the social media strategist for PhillyCHI this year. Just wanted to let everybody know to please stay tuned for a chance to win one of these awesome Rosenfeld books. Winners will be selected and announced at the end of this call, and then we'll be reaching out individually just to collect your addresses so we can send you a copy of the physical book as well. And actually, before I announce our speakers, I wanted to hand it over to Suzanne. Suzanne, did you want to say a few things about Think, just for any folks who aren't familiar?
Yeah, thank you very much, Michelle. Hi, everyone. I'm Suzanne Cotter. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing at Think Company. For those of you who maybe don't know of us or haven't heard of us, we are UX design and software development company with locations locally in Philly, but also a location in Denver. We typically work with companies to tackle large-scale technology and design challenges. For anyone who may be on the job search, I just dropped something in the chat earlier. We are actually looking for a few roles right now, specifically a tech lead, a senior developer, and project manager. So those are, we're hiring for both full-time and contract roles. So feel free to check out our careers page or send me a message if you're interested. And otherwise, we just wanted to quickly say thanks to everyone here, especially those involved in planning the show and tell. This is one of our favorite annual community events, and we really look forward to it every year. So we're looking forward to the presentations. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Suzanne. And yes, if we can move forward, thank you. So our speakers for tonight are going to be Kim Torres, followed by Sasha and Tim Moyer. Then we'll have Lizzie Manning, and bringing up the rear will be John Rodrigues. And I will now pass it over to Kim. Take it away, Kim.
Share my screen. Does everyone see my screen?
Yep, we're seeing it.
Yes.
Good to go.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Torres. I want to first thank PhillyCHI for giving me this opportunity to talk to you folks about a cool project and exercise I did this year called the Collection Design Challenge. The goal of today's talk is to help you folks learn how to create design challenges within your teams and use this exercise to actually help you solve complex problems. And while I'm talking about this, I will be using examples from my design challenge to help you illustrate each step I took to make it successful. So a little bit about me. Once again, my name is Kim Torres. I'm a product designer based in Philly. Until recently, I was at Billtrust working with a small UX team that was responsible for supporting many different B2B products for across the company. They're actually focused on more on designing for the invoicing and collections management tool. But in my spare time, I love to draw and study astrology. So before I kind of jump into the process, I want to actually start with why I did this exercise to begin with. My team was filled with designers with diverse skills, ranging from user research to engineering. So I want to go above and beyond the regular workload and do something really fun. But most importantly, I discovered a worthy problem to solve together. A problem really big, really complex for a designer to tackle alone. Now, how did I identify this worthy problem? I actually had to answer 3 questions. The first question is this a forgotten feature or a forgotten product? Meaning, has no one worked on this particular feature since it's been live? 2, is this product overall new? Because if it's new, you actually have more leeway to experiment with different solutions. And lastly, does the user not see value in it? So you really want to base this on user research. So don't assume because it's forgotten or new, you need to actually compile customer feedback, internal feedback to defend your case before taking the time to solve this problem. So for me, I said yes to all these questions. Just to give you a little more context, the product I was working on at the time was a collections management system. It's one of the newest and fastest changing products Billtrust offers. And one of the product's feature was this work queue. And this work queue determined what accounts collectors had to contact for the day. However, what I learned from customers and internal folks, the work queue was not working as intended. And I was really bummed to hear that, because I saw true value in that feature, and I was really passionate to find ways to showcase the true value of that. And so I hypothesized that if we showed relevant information in the work queue, collectors would actually have the confidence to use the system to clean out not only their queue, but have successful contact with each of their account in their portfolio. So this was actually a really big problem. There were so many ways to approach it. So I had to find a way to get sort of a quick access of different perspectives, different ideas in a short time. So before I actually created a brief, I had to do one thing. And that one thing was to get executive and manager buy-in. And the way I did this is I had to sell to them. So I actually set a time aside and sell them the change that could potentially improve the entire system. During this meeting, I had to go over what I learned from these customers. And once they were on board, then I was able to do the prep work to create a design brief. So some things I actually added in my brief were the following: the problem. So my problem was, how can we show relevant information in the work queue so that our collectors would have the confidence to use the system to successfully contact each account? The user I was working to solve this problem for is the collector. The goal was to clean out their queue and increase payment intake of overdue invoices. So while you're also highlighting the goal here, you also want to include customer feedback that you hear, so it fully paints the picture of the overall goal. Next, you also want to include video screenshots of how the product works today, because you want to give each participant, the team members, sort of a clue of what they're going to work on. Also, I had to also define terms. So terminology was a big thing. Sometimes products can invent terms or use terms that are common in the industry, so you cannot assume that everyone knows what these terms mean, so you want to define them in this brief. And lastly, you want to have a time frame, a flexible time frame that accommodates everyone's workload. I recommend 2 to 3 weeks. That's what I gave my team members, enough time to not only digest the problem and the details that I was going to present to them, but also give them time to come up with a solution. So once I was done doing the brief, this is where I start presenting the brief to the participants, to my team members, as well as set expectations. So very similar to a kickoff, this is where I go over the brief, I do our product walkthrough, answer any questions, but also set expectations, meaning what does each person need to submit at the end of the exercise? Remember, the end goal here is to get as many good ideas as possible. So make sure you're not setting any rules, any restrictions that could potentially demotivate any your team members or anyone participating in this exercise. In addition to that, you also want to be clear. You don't want them redoing or redesigning a whole system. Any small idea is valid. So in my design challenge, I said that, as well as made sure that everyone that was participating in the exercise could submit their final design in any form, Post-it note, Axure, XD, you name it. So once I was going through presented the brief, I set those expectations, I answer all those questions. It was time for me to kind of let go and let them do their thing. So fast forward 2-3 weeks, this is time for me to listen and see what my team came up with. So very similar to a client pitch meeting, each person has 10 to 15 minutes to present their ideas or approaches, and also everyone took turns asking questions. So to kind of remind you folks, in the beginning of this process, I hypothesized that if we showed relevant information in the workspace, collectors will have the confidence to use the system to clean out their queue and have successful contact with each of their accounts. What my team came up with were things I have not considered. My manager at the time believed that there needed to be a quick way to contact each account, because he believed that the faster the collectors can call or email their accounts, the better the chances of them getting payments. Our user researcher said, wait, maybe we should give them more control to handle the work queue, because he believed that if giving collectors more control of the work queue will actually give them confidence to know how to organize their day. One of our designers said, well, we should help them focus. So she believed we should use the system's algorithm to our advantage and create some sort of top 5 account list. She believed that a focused view of the work queue would help collectors not feel overwhelmed with the overall amount of accounts they needed to contact for a day. Because on average, collectors can be contacting 50 to 100 accounts a day. Next, one of our designers actually believed that we should display time zones, because he believed that time zones does affect the way accounts respond to collection calls and emails. And lastly, our UX engineer came up with displaying and tracking payment behavior would be beneficial. So he believed that if we display payment behavior, it will give the collector a heads up that, you know, what if an account was more likely to pay their overdue invoices or not. So I was really impressed with my team and what they came up with. So it really was up to me to not only take all the best bits that they presented to me and start combining what worked and what didn't work. So when it came to combining, I actually came up with a few feature enhancements. One was the strategy box, which is an easy way for collectors to filter accounts based on categories like industry or overdue balances. I also came up with a concept of a time zone alert. So this alert will actually show up in the work queue and let the collector know that this account is closed or not responding to calls or emails because based on their business hours. And lastly, I want to show some sort of risk score. So some score that will help the collector see how likely an account will actually pay their bills. So once I was able to combine it to one concept and sort of display these feature enhancements, next I had to figure out when to actually present this concept design for the product and development team. And at that time, I was actually advised to present at the beginning of a quarter, because during this time, most product teams are planning what they want to accomplish. So if you're presenting your concept during this time, it will actually give you a higher chance of them considering some of your ideas. So let's just summarize. Step 1, I identify a worthy problem. And the way I did that was figure out if this was a forgotten feature, if the product was new, and if the users did not see value in it. Next, I made sure I got executive and manager buy-in. And once I got that, I was able to do the prep work to create a design brief. And in that brief, I highlighted the problem, the user, the goal of the user, how the product is currently working, terminology, as well as time frame. Once I was able to get that done, I was able to present that brief as well as set expectations. Just a reminder, this is where you're not setting too many rules, too many restrictions. You want to keep this exercise as open as possible. Next, you want to, once they come back to you with all their approaches, this is where you can record the session, take notes, anything to kind of go back to your knowing what approaches they came up with. And then from there, you can take all the best bits and combine and make a concept design so you can pitch to a product and development team. And like I said before, the best time to present concept designs is the beginning of a quarter. So overall, having done this design exercise helped me realize how collaborative design can be effective. We don't have the luxury of having a bucket filled with great ideas waiting for us. But we have to trust that there's a team, there are people supporting us, willing to collaborate with us in solving a problem. So be transparent and be clear what you need help in and get to work. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Kim. So there's one question in the Q&A right now. It says, was it only UX designers participating in the exercise, or were there other disciplines involved?
So for this exercise, it was only UX designers, but I really, really encourage other disciplines to collaborate, because I remember going in meetings, developers have pretty good ideas, product owners have pretty good ideas. So really is anyone who's interested or has the time to collaborate with you in solving this problem.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions? Let's see, we got one just now. Can you talk about the need to sell your ideas to stakeholders without being too critical of the way things are?
Can you talk about the need to sell your ideas to stakeholders without being too critical of the way? Yeah, so I was very, I had to be really careful with the feedback I was getting. And really from there is about how I persuade them. So it's really making sure, depending on the stakeholders, so the stakeholders for me were the product owners and the development manager. So really is helping them understand, like, no, this is not, I'm not telling you that the product sucks or anything like that, but that this is what we need to focus on. So based on their plans, like, hey, this is what we need to focus on right now, because this is really crucial for getting them to complete a goal, complete their task. So we should actually shift our priorities. So when you say shift your priorities, sometimes most of the time, really, it does help not for product owners to be like less defensive.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Got to be tactful.
Yes.
So one other question that just came in, what development practice did you follow for your project, Agile or Waterfall?
That's a great question. I have to get back. I think it was Agile. That was actually pretty good. How far advanced did you work? Wow. So I actually had to take I had a kind of like a downtime between projects. So I took advantage about maybe, I want to say, yeah, about 2-3 weeks. I was able to work because, no, about a month actually. Yeah. Overall, it was a whole month. So it was 1 week of me doing the prep work that's in between doing all the other projects. And then the rest of the time was giving them the time to actually go back, because mind you, majority of the designers I was working with, they also had other projects to work on. So about a month, if that answers your question.
Awesome. And Matthew, I realized that you didn't ask that question anonymously. I should have allowed you to talk. I just unmuted you. Did that answer your question okay?
Oh, yes, thank you. That's why I said thank you. I'm sorry to pepper you with questions.
No, it's great. Love the Q&A. Thank you so much.
Great presentation.
Thank you. Is there anything you would do differently or change about your design process? Definitely, I would have to say, I feel like I wish I checked in. That's the one thing. My design team did an amazing job coming up with the way they approached the problem, but I wish I actually checked in, because it's 2-3 weeks and that's a long time. So they might have had questions that maybe they just forgot to tell me or anything like that. So
cool.
I think,
and actually, if it's okay, I think we'll pass it on to Sasha and Tim, and if you could answer any remaining questions in the Q&A.
Yep, totally.
We can catch back up on the schedule a little bit. So
yep.
Thank you so much, Kim. And yeah, unfortunately, these virtual events, you can't hear all the clapping. You are getting a little digital clapping in the chat. So well done.
Right.
Please, everyone, put your kudos in there if you have them, and any lingering questions. Otherwise, yeah, Tim and Sasha, you ready to go?
Yep. Let me know if you guys can hear me and see me okay. Is that showing up for everyone?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. My name is Sasha and I'm here with Tim. We're from the DICE Group, which is a design and tech consultancy within Thomas Jefferson University Hospital. And we're going to tell you a bit today about a project that we worked on together with the radiology department to help improve the patient experience during COVID, improve patient safety, and also help the office operate a little bit more efficiently. So Tim is going to tell you now about what the experience is like today, and then I'm going to tell you what we changed.
Thanks. Just set my timer here. Actually, do you want to go back just one quick slide? Thanks. Just disclaimer, I exited the DICE group a little over a week ago. It was my current employer, but wanted to still help present this with Sasha. So it's grateful to be here. And this was an interdisciplinary, multi-team effort, and a lot of kudos goes to our tech lead, development lead, Michael Saris as well. So
yeah, huge kudos to Mike and his team.
Okay, go ahead. Thanks.
Yep.
So our high-level mission here with this project was to aim to limit physical contact while improving the experience from the moment of booking an appointment for a patient to the moment of leaving the exam room. So how can we improve that experience so that patients feel more comfortable coming back to Jefferson during and after COVID-19 era here, and so that clinical settings can become more efficient as well. So kind of hitting multiple notes there with one swoop. And because postponed medical care presents new risks and patients deserve to have these experiences reimagined. And so we conceptualized of a pilot or an MVP. We use these terms interchangeably throughout the process, and there are definitely semantics around all that. But ultimately, we wanted patients to be able to complete documentation prior to their appointment. And we wanted to be able to avoid unnecessary time spent in waiting rooms. And particularly these outpatient imaging waiting rooms is our pilot site. And we wanted them to be able to wait near the office and proceed in an expedited fashion when the provider was ready to see them, right? And thus helping patients avoid potentially contracting COVID-19 and reducing friction overall for patients. So how does this go today? And so we tried to take a look at, distilling things down into a basic flow of today's journey. And we want you to meet Anita. This is a persona that we created. And she just found out that she needs an MRI of her arm. And likely she was referred to Jefferson Outpatient Imaging through a provider that she has seen. And she probably has a series of questions such as, will I be safe when I'm waiting? How long will I need to wait before my imaging? And how does social distancing work in the waiting room? And what forms or information will I need to fill out? And so basically, in order to get an appointment, somehow Anita receives the office number information and she schedules an appointment to get her MRI. Peter answers the phone. He's a scheduler for outpatient imaging, and he and Anita agree that in 7 days will be her appointment to have her arm imaged. And so Anita writes that down on probably a piece of paper, puts it in a calendar somewhere, and stores it away. So this is today's experience. And so a day before the appointment, Anita gets a call from the technologist, and he says, "Hi, Anita, we'll give you your forms when you arrive, and remember to bring your ID. We'll see you tomorrow." Cool. Well, the evening before the appointment, hypothetically, Anita is at home, and she's thinking, okay, I live in the suburbs, and I've got to get down to Center City, Philadelphia. I'm going to ask my daughter, can you drive me to my MRI appointment tomorrow? Her daughter might likely have these kinds of questions. Sure, what time? What's the address? Do you want me to wait with you? And where will I park? I think I wrote that down somewhere. Let me look for my paperwork. Okay, so the next morning, before Anita's appointment, her appointment is around 1 o'clock. They start driving and they're searching for parking. It's congested. Go ahead. They finally find a parking garage Anita, gets her gear together, gets her mask, hand sanitizer, maybe she's wearing gloves, and she searches for the entrance to this particular facility, which across the street can be kind of obscure, and she finally finds her way inside. And her appointment's at 1 o'clock, so she arrives about 20 minutes before her appointment. There's screening for COVID. She signs in, and this is a greeter that Anita meets. Now, a greeter would probably have a mask. And Anita receives 2 to 5 forms from the greeter, depending on a few factors. So first of all, Anita's gonna fill out the patient history form. And that might look a bit like this. It's got a lot of questions and can take several minutes just to fill out in the waiting room. Oh, wow, there's another one there. Thanks. Then there's the actual form related to the body part that's getting imaged. And in this case, it's her arm. Okay, so that doesn't take quite as long. And then if she's a new patient, well, hypothetically, let's say she is, she's got to fill out a contrast consent form, a HIPAA consent form, and a medications MedRec form as well. We don't need to know what all of those particulars are, just the fact that it takes a while. And Anita's probably not having a lot of fun in this process, let's say. So then she brings those forms to the registrar, and he reviews them, and they discuss payments, and she's guided to the changing room, and then a second waiting area. And after waiting more, then she goes to get imaged. And so hypothetically, that whole process took anywhere between 10 to 15 to maybe even 20 minutes. And challenges that Anita encountered are, it was time consuming and no one enjoys filling out forms. And also, no one wants to be in a waiting room during the era of COVID-19. So it's 2020. Let's use technology that's been around for a while. And here's our MVP solution. Take it away, Sasha.
Cool, thanks, Tim. So as you guys saw, not exactly perfect. Everyone's trying their best, but they're using somewhat antiquated tools. So starts out with Anita again. This is still, she would find out she needs to get an MRI, likely from another provider. And they would say, hey, Anita, go to Jefferson Outpatient Imaging. You're going to go get your MRI there. So she's going to have some of these same questions, right? Am I going to be safe? Will I need to wait? How does social distancing work? These are all things going on in her head. What starts to change is the next step, where she calls Peter to schedule her appointment, and Peter tells her a lot of the same information, but also says, you're going to receive a text reminder soon, and it's going to prompt you over the course of this process so that we can keep you remote as much as possible and also as up to date as possible. All right, sounds good. Anita might take some notes as well, but as soon as she does and finishes the call, she gets a little text reminder that looks something like this. So just to say, your appointment was confirmed. Is it okay if we text you and let us know if you want us to stop texting you? Anita, is interested in the system, so she doesn't opt out, but she could at any point if she wanted to. So within 2 days of the appointment, Anita gets another text that looks something like this, that says, your appointment is within 2 days. If you click this link, you can fill out your forms, and please be near the office 15 minutes before your appointment or so. And that 2 hours before your appointment, we're gonna give you a check-in option via text as well. So Anita looks at this, but she's still 2 days out. She's not too worried, so she's gonna hold on to this text. So confirmation call still happens. The technologist who's gonna image her says, hey Anita, remember your ID tomorrow. If you haven't yet, please fill out your forms digitally. So that reminds her, oh yeah, I did get that text yesterday. I'm gonna take a look at it tonight. Same conversation is likely to happen with her daughter the evening before. So can you drive me to my appointment? Yeah, and same questions come up. When is it? Where are we going? Do you want me to wait? But Anita this time has that information on hand, and she's able to provide her daughter with time and date that's on her phone that doesn't require a login. So something we heard often from patients is, I don't use my chart. I'm not sure how to get that information without a lot of hassle. I have to remember a password. This is all information that is sent directly to her phone in an authenticated manner that we handle on our end. So now, at Anita's convenience, she can fill out her forms and enter information. And this also gives the office an opportunity to check in that information before Anita shows up in case there are any issues. So the day of the appointment, much the same. Anita, I guess one thing that's not the same is Anita gets her check-in text that she was told about ahead of time, but unfortunately still has to go through the unfortunate experience of looking for parking, struggling for parking, circling the block, ultimately paying for parking in a garage.
Wow.
Yeah. That's phase 2, reinventing parking in Philadelphia. So Anita, when she gets to the garage and is parked, she can indicate that she's ready. So she clicks that text. There's a link in here that says basically to the office, I'm ready to come in. And then the office will contact her as soon as they're ready for her. So there's no waiting when she finally arrives. The registrar, in the meantime, is able to look at this dashboard that we designed and see Anita's forms, look at each of them and make sure that it's appropriate for Anita to come in. And then he can ask her to come in and prompt her to go directly to the greeter. He calls her and says, hey, Anita, we're ready to receive you. Please go to 850 Walnut Street. We'll fast track you there. Same as today, Anita gets her protective equipment on. She finds the entrance, which is still unfortunately a little bit difficult to find, but she arrives much closer to her appointment time, knowing that everything else is already ready to go and that the office is going to see her immediately. So the greeter has information that indicates that Anita is part of this pilot group, does a quick COVID screening, and sends her to the registrar. The registrar then just confirms with Anita that he has everything, gives her a paper copy in case she wants it, gets her signature, and takes her immediately to get changed and then to imaging. So how is this different? Anita spends way less time in the waiting room. She's not waiting for registration, neither is she waiting to complete her forms, and she's also not waiting after getting changed. She was able to complete forms at home on her own time and likely reference other materials that she might have, so she feels less stressed to rush. And then in addition, she was contacted when the office was ready to see her and did not have to log in at any point to access her forms or her appointment information. So how did we do all this? What was the process? So there was lots of conversations, right? We have to understand today's flow and today's needs in order to improve for tomorrow. That involved talking to lots of different kinds of stakeholders from within Jefferson, as well as patients who have been to Jefferson in the past or have upcoming appointments.
And huge kudos to Sasha for interviewing a ton of people and trying to understand a process that he couldn't himself go through. So
yeah. So that was a fascinating challenge, right? So this is one of the larger projects that was wholly started after the era of COVID. So I was not able to meet with any of these people. So it was a really great learning experience and something I'm excited to build on more. And to Tim as well, you know, like having a team that was both remote but highly collaborative was really awesome. So, and I mean, I guess to that point, we were working a ton with our tech team. So we had a group of people from within DICE who are, you know, who are developers who are highly dedicated to this project and focusing really intently on how to improve this experience. And were giving us ideas of what was actually scalable and feasible, because ultimately we want this to be not just for radiology, but for any patient. And then, you know, to actually prove this out, we had to develop and test concepts and then define and measure KPIs over the lifetime of the project, which continues to be something we're doing.
And also I'll add that the stakeholders were incredibly involved and responsive and very supportive and brought great ideas to the table. I think we probably underscored, or we can't underscore that enough, just how communicative and helpful our stakeholders were, our clinical stakeholders were.
Yeah, absolutely. Having bought in stakeholders makes a project, you know, it's a night and day difference. But just a couple of following things we're working on doing for this next iteration is to unify communications. So right now, patients and providers might communicate across a few different modalities. Providers within their own office may communicate across a few others, and we'd like to bring that all into this one virtual waiting rooms platform. We want to minimize info. So, I mean, everyone's had this experience. You go to the doctor and you're like, I'm pretty sure you already have this information for me. Why, right? We're living in 2020. You don't need to fill out your name every single time you visit. We want to expand to other imaging types. So as I mentioned earlier, and Tim mentioned earlier, this was focused on MRI, but we want to expand to things like PET, CT, X-ray, those kinds of imaging studies. And then finally, we want scalable communication. So we don't want them to have to call Anita. We want them to have a variety of different tools at their disposal to alert Anita as is appropriate. You know, some people are more tech savvy, some are less. So we want to give that flexibility. But that's everything from us. So please reach out if you have any more questions. We'd love to talk. But also, obviously, we're going to take some questions now.
Do you want to talk about like the pilot like size, participant size, that sort of thing?
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about that. So I guess just to give a little bit of context, we started with just patients who were getting their extremities, so like their limbs basically imaged on MRI. And this would involve probably about 10 to 15 patients a day for the last like month and a half. So we're at a couple hundred patients, I think a little like 350-ish patients now that have gone through. But this will be expanding. It's going to sort of balloon as we expand to other imaging types.
Awesome. Yeah, great presentation, guys. This is really fascinating. Got a couple questions coming into the Q&A. The first one is, how did you contend with patient privacy concerns in terms of submitting forms online?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's a challenge, right? Everything we do at DICE has this challenge in front of it. Anytime we're working with a patient, everything has to be HIPAA compliant, soup to nuts. Like the entire thing needs to be as watertight as we can make it, right? Like I guess no security system is perfect, but you have to do everything you can. And so we've been working with our security team within the hospital. We've been working with the developers within Jefferson, as well as with the department themselves, to figure out what their best practices are. So every patient is basically sent a form with no personal information inside of it. And then the information that they submit is submitted in an encrypted manner to a HIPAA compliant system, which is then within our firewall and is only available to a white list of people within the department. So that's sort of a high level explanation of how we're encrypting it. There's obviously a lot more going on, but I'm unfortunately not a developer. And so can't give you too many more details than that.
Yeah, that's great. Have a question or two maybe from Gina, who I'm unmuting.
Oh, hello. Can you all hear me? Hi.
Yes.
So the first thing I said was that I didn't have a question. I just had a comment, and I was like that annoying person. But I wanted to add a comment. Since you guys didn't have a personal experience, I have to get a brain MRI every few years because of family conditions. And like just looking at those forms gave me a headache because they're awful. So I just, as someone who has to do that, I really appreciated y'all's approach to that problem. I think it's really good. And then somewhat related is, I'm curious about any kind of like secondary forms of research that you guys might have done. There are lots of hospitals, doctors' offices, et cetera, in Philadelphia. And I imagine they have their own solutions to these problems. And I'm wondering if you looked into them, and if you did, like what did you take from those?
Yes. So thank you for sharing that. And I don't think mentioned that there's also an email channel that happens here simultaneously with the text messaging, provided that patients provide their email address, so they can access those forms either through text or email. But we went through, we had members of the team who would be getting text messages from like dentist's office. So I mean, this idea of appointment reminders through text messaging, or even this idea of like trying to time entry into the building and that sort of thing is not super new on its own, right?
Sure.
But yeah, so that's a form of research for sure. And so we wanted to try to really customize and tailor it to the timing and the context of the Jefferson outpatient imaging folks. And so that's what kind of prompted some of the decisions around like 2 hours before, for example. We know that a lot of people are commuting and driving in there, or even taking public from the suburbs. So we didn't want to hit them up while they're traveling. But Sasha, didn't know if you had additional ways to question of secondary research.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way of putting it, right? Like this, it's not a new idea. It's just something. Unfortunately, healthcare lags often in terms of technology implementation, and so we sort of we have to get the benefit of learning from other industries. So it's not even just other healthcare institutions that we can look at, but we can look at things like restaurants, movie theaters.
Yes.
I mean, there's so many places, right, where they may say to you like, oh, we think, or I don't know, like car rental, like, oh, we're gonna have a car for you in 12 minutes, like make your way over, or we're gonna be able to seat your party of 6 soon. And the language that's used, the method of prompting, the tool that's used to do the prompting, the timing, like all of those things we're able to learn from. So yeah, it's a good point. It's something we did do, and I mean, I guess we can always learn more to see how other people are being creative around this. But thankfully, or somewhat unfortunately, since we are sort of lagging in the race, we're able to look at lots of different examples out in the world and learn from them.
And also a big part of this effort, we kind of understated here, is that we're really trying to optimize that workflow of communication between the technologists and the registrars as well. And that whole dashboard piece is something that like the team is continuing to kind of expand on and look for moments of improved communication between the people.
Yeah, I mean, the UX of that dashboard could be its own 15-minute or hour-long presentation. There's so many conversations that have gone into that.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
So I see a few questions about tools we used. So we used Miro to kind of map out that journey, both today's experience and then like layering on. And Sasha, I think something that we wanted to hit on while we were putting all this together is that even if people don't engage this added layer of technology and communication, that they can still flow through. And so Sasha diligently mapped out like a matrix of like possible ways that this tech would be engaged or not engaged so that they could still flow through to the end and you know, see the provider.
Yeah. So any failure point in the system, they basically just get dumped back into the existing workflow. So they probably will have a slightly slower experience because they have to go through the forms and whatever else. But yeah. Let's see what other questions are here. Parking. Yeah, parking is a huge barrier. So parking actually is a broader question of how to improve at Jefferson. So it's not something that we're looking at just with radiology. There have been, I would imagine, way more conversations that I'm aware of, but even conversations that I'm aware of, many ways to improve parking within the city and how to get parking available for patients. So one thing this office does do is offer parking validation. So parking is free if you go to one of the like sort of designated lots, and they let patients know that over the phone. But there still does need to be space, and it still does take time to park. So you know, even if you don't have to pay for it, space is still a constraint. You know, so we're in the middle of Philadelphia in a pretty in a not very vertical part of the city, I guess, because it's so old.
So there's a design challenge if anybody wants to.
Yeah.
You know, and we do see, you know, apps like Park Hero and others that are kind of like, it looks to me like they're kind of looking at what spaces are available in different facilities on given days, and so no one's currently prioritizing that as far as I'm aware, but that is a huge opportunity to improve patient experience for sure.
All right, thanks guys. I think we're about at time, so if you wouldn't mind answering the remaining questions in the Q&A feature, that would be awesome. But yeah, thanks again. This was so interesting. Really appreciate it, and everyone please clap virtually for these guys.
Thanks for having us, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
All right, next we're going to hear from Lizzie Manning from Think Company.
All right, I will share my screen. Thanks, Ben. Okay, so thanks to PhillyCHI for having me tonight. My name is Lizzie Manning, and I am a senior experience designer at Think Company, a research and design consultancy focused on building digital products and services. And while I'm the only one presenting this tonight, my work wouldn't have been possible without my Think Company team, specifically my tech lead, Helene Spears. So I just wanted to give a shout out there. So I'm going to be talking about a recent project that we did with PolicyMap, a mapping and analytics platform. We recently worked with them to modernize the technology that powers their tool, to update their design and development processes, and to modernize the user experience and general look and feel of the tool as well. I'll also take us into the tool for a demo to explore the types of questions we can answer with the data available. So in light of schools reopening in various capacities this fall, we'll take a look at the impact of remote learning on different communities. I'll start with a little bit of background on PolicyMap. So PolicyMap makes geographic data accessible to users in all kinds of industries. This is government, academia, healthcare, or nonprofit. And these users range from really experienced data analysts and researchers to everyday people like you and me who don't often use mapping tools. PolicyMap started as a small division of a nonprofit, but they've since become a certified small business and benefit corporation. They are also a female founded and led company, also native to Philly. Their mission is to curate, normalize, and make understandable data from various sources. So at the core, they want to remove the technical barrier that comes with plotting data on maps to enable people in policy and business to make data-driven decisions. So here we are looking at the legacy PolicyMap platform. This was last updated over 10 years ago, and the technology behind this platform was out of date and couldn't support the team's roadmap any longer. So PolicyMap applied to and received a grant to update this technology. With this technology update, they also had a larger goal to grow the business without disrupting current users. So they were looking to take advantage of the speed and enhancements that came with the new technology while really maintaining the feel of PolicyMap. They didn't want an interface that was so totally different that existing users would get lost. The existing users, whether they're in government, policy, academia, they don't have time and don't have the patience to relearn how to use this tool. And that group is really important to the PolicyMap team. At the same time, the team knows that best practices in design and user experience have changed dramatically in the past 10 years. So they wanted the interface to reflect modern trends. And this is where I think company came in. So they came to us for support in redesigning the product. I was the designer on the project, and as I mentioned before, I was working with other developers along the way. So we didn't have a budget for the typical research we would do when starting a project, and instead we just really relied on the client's knowledge of their users, our own knowledge of design best practices to redesign this. So we weren't going for a total revamp of the platform. Really, it was just a modernization of a tool that really was already working well for its users. We worked through different features every week, sketching with the client, working really collaboratively, prioritizing features like menu navigation and exposing things that were a little bit hidden. So you'll see when we go into the demo, there's some things along the bottom that are easy to miss. And other features that users would ask for, not knowing that they already existed in the platform. So we passed off our designs to the Think Company developers who built a code library of components from those designs. And then the developers also provided additional consulting support to help PolicyMap's processes get up to date as well. So they helped improve the agile work using tools like Jira. The developers also help PolicyMap bring their source control management up to date using Bitbucket, and also assisted in the hiring process. So helping PolicyMap identify developers that would be needed to integrate front-end work on an ongoing basis. As we were integrating this front-end work, design was pairing with development. So I would literally be sitting side by side with the developer, looking at the components, making sure they were working as they should. And working together so closely enabled us to make tweaks on the fly. So we would consolidate things like extra spacing, remove that, downsize different elements on the map to make sure we were retaining as much real estate as possible for the map and not the features around it. And doing this in code was much more efficient than me going back into the design files, making these tiny changes, and then handing that off again to the development team. So all of that work helped us redesign this legacy system into this updated platform, a more modern and easy to use tool built for the 2020 user, someone who is more used to tools like Google Maps and Amazon. And you can see it maintains a really similar feel, but as we go into the demo, I'll point out areas of important change. So for the demo, I want you to take a minute and imagine that you are a school administrator, maybe a teacher, or just a concerned parent. Schools are reopening in different ways. You know, maybe some are going half time, some are going half in person, half remote, and you want to understand the availability of resources in different communities. So I'm going to switch into the tool now. And for the sake of this example, we'll be focusing on Philadelphia. So what we see first when we go into the tool is the legacy policy map. So right now, the team is maintaining both of these platforms because the new platform isn't fully functional, doesn't have all the features yet. So again, really prioritizing that existing user and making sure whatever workflows they're currently engaged in, they can still complete. So just to show a little bit of a difference, I am going to zoom into the city of Philadelphia. And you can see this map is really different from things we're used to encountering today, like Google Maps. As you zoom in or zoom out, it's really sensitive, so there's not a ton of control available. And it's also fairly low contrast, so it's kind of hard to see the boundary of Philadelphia. Might be making some of you dizzy here. But that is for an effect. So as we go into the new version of Policy Map, we will do the same thing. So again, focusing on the city of Philadelphia. And you can see how we kind of smoothly zoom in here. You can see the boundaries of the city pretty clearly. And again, thinking of the question, what's the impact of remote learning on different communities? So what we're going to do here is apply a couple of different data points and data layers to the map. So to identify students at risk of falling behind in school and potentially in need of more support during the pandemic, we'll open up the menu to the Education tab and plot the data points for school performance on the map. So what you're going to see here is all the different schools popping up. We are going to filter the schools here to show those with the lowest test scores in the state. So once we do that, you can immediately see a change. Schools that are lower performing are more heavily concentrated in the city, and you see very few in the bounds outside. So before I add more data to the map, I'm just going to call out one more feature. So in the corner here, you can see a toggle for single layer or multi-layer. And what this does is allows you to apply different numbers of layers to the map. And when you're in multi-layer mode, you can add more than one data layer, and you can choose to see those data layers intersecting or overlapping. And this is an example of what I was talking about before, in which, you know, the legacy version doesn't really highlight this feature, though it's really important. And so it was severely underused and a really big priority in the redesign. So we're going to add data layers to see where households lack electronic devices like computers and access to internet, because those are the tools that are needed for remote learning. So here I'm going to apply a layer for households without any type of computer access. And so you'll see the map turn purple really quickly. So what I'm going to do here is adjust this number. So we're seeing households in the area, at least 25% of households in the area that lack computers. And as I zoom in a little bit further, you can see that this overlaps with those lower performing schools. I'm also going to add that layer of internet access. So adding the data layer for households without any type of internet access. And we'll adjust this again. So we're focusing on areas that have at least 25% of households without internet access. And so you can see right now we're in an ANDed version. So we're showing the intersecting data, but we can also take a look at what that looks like if we're overlapping. And you can see areas where we have lower performing schools and less access to computers themselves and internet are overlapping here. So that's serving a disproportionate number of households that would potentially need that distance learning during the pandemic. So the last layer I'm going to apply here are some demographic layers to see which populations are most affected by the schools and by this digital divide. So I'm just going to switch this to be blue. So we're understanding that households without any type of computer or internet access are what we're seeing in the blue. But then we'll go into the demographics tab and apply a couple of different data layers for race. So here we are looking at estimated percent of all people who are white. And again, I'm going to change the percentage to just show areas that are at least 50% white. So you see that shift slightly. We'll do the same for non-white or Latino communities. Again, just shifting that to at least 50%. And then we will also do that for Black or African American populations. Okay, and I'll just mess with these gradients so we can see a little bit better. So what you're looking at here is when we add estimated percentages of different populations, you can see areas with lower capacity schools that are limited by the resources available to them align more heavily with neighborhoods of primarily Black and Latino communities. So you see estimated population of people who are white in this kind of dotted line, and then in the vertical and horizontal stripes, you see the Black and Latino communities. So what this tells us is that providing resources like computers and internet access is really a question of racial equity. And as school districts consider the prospect of reopening, making sure we're serving students equitably is really important, and making sure they have the resources like computers or access to the internet. So one more thing I want to note before I leave this demo, I'm just going to remove these layers from the map. PolicyMap is a publicly accessible platform. You can subscribe to get some extra features, but something they've made public during the pandemic are these COVID maps. So if we click on the special edition for the COVID maps, you can take a look at different things. And these quick maps just apply the data to the map for you and reveal the insights immediately. So even though I was walking you through and had some idea of what I wanted to show and the questions I wanted to answer, these quick maps kind of just put that right on the map for you. So as an example, if you pose the question, where are populations vulnerable to COVID, you'll see the data appear in this purple color, based on median income and percentage of adults diagnosed with diabetes. So I will just flip back to my presentation for a moment here. Thanks everybody for listening. That's just one example of many that shows how we can use data to understand what's going on in our communities as we face big decisions like schools reopening. And the redesign of PolicyMap hopefully makes that a little bit easier for those not only in the positions of power, but people like you and me who are just trying to understand what's going on right now. And that really brings us back to PolicyMap's overall mission and the goal of this project. So again, if you're interested in exploring this yourself, policymap.com/new maps will take you to that new version, and you can ask your questions now or email me with any thoughts too.
Wow, thanks, Lizzie. This is really cool and very relevant. Thanks for walking through all of this. A couple of questions, and just a reminder to everyone watching, feel free to upvote the questions you want to make sure get asked live. So the first one on the list is, oh, there's an upvote, it changed. You mentioned you didn't have access to users on the front end of the project for research. Were you able to do any testing with them with the updated design? If not, how did you manage this?
Yeah, so this was something that was really new for a Think Company project, as I mentioned, because we do prioritize research so much. But the client had a really strong understanding of their users, and they would run software that's similar to Hotjar, where you can have recordings of your website going on and you can kind of view live as people are using your website. So they would have that running in the background sometimes and would be able to refer to that. Of course, in that way, you're not getting the context or the reasons why people are clicking where they're clicking, but you can observe a little bit. So there's a little bit of that, but in terms of updated designs, really relying on best practices and kind of hallway testing at Think Company, sharing with colleagues, and working really closely with both the client and the developers is how we came to our decisions.
Awesome. So the next question is, can you talk a little bit more about the design dev pairing and how that works? Do you provide developers with documentation, or is it more real-time collaboration?
Yeah, it's more real-time collaboration, which is faster and more exciting. So I would just pull my chair up to Helene's desk and we would take a look at whatever she was working on. And, you know, I would mention maybe decreasing a text size, reducing the padding by a certain amount, changing some icons, adjusting colors. You know, if there was scratch work that needed to be done, I was sort of right there on my laptop with her, but it was very much just together.
Awesome. All right. The last question on here is, was there a research phase to identify feature underutilization and what to prioritize in the redesign? Did the grant for the redesign have requirements built in?
Yeah, so I would say that research phase was those 10 years before, you know, when the platform wasn't being updated. The technology team was sort of collecting information and feedback. One of the biggest things was the menu. So you sort of had to drag your mouse and follow along to get to certain layers. A couple of the features that were underutilized that I mentioned. And I don't think there was any quantitative measurement of what was underutilized or not, but more anecdotal requests from users for certain features that already did exist in the platform. So to my knowledge, the grant didn't have requirements for a redesign, but there was a limited amount of funds, and that's why research wasn't prioritized in this project.
That makes sense. All right, I've got a question from Matthew. I'm gonna unmute you. All right, we should be able to hear you.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I believe I heard you say earlier on, and I'm sorry if I missed something beforehand, so please forgive me. I believe I heard you say that you didn't do design up front and you were working directly with the developers to create this. How did that go? How did that work?
Oh yes, let me clarify. So we did go through a full wireframing and design process, but once we created a pattern library with the different components from the design and there was working code, we stopped using design files and we're really just working in the code directly. So there definitely was the initial design phase.
And how exactly were you working in the code directly? Were you actually manipulating the code like as a developer would?
I was just sort of dictating to the developer. So instead of taking the time to create a new file, if it was a small adjustment, we would just kind of verbally go through that. But if it was something like a new feature request, yeah, we would absolutely go back to the drawing board.
Gotcha. Thank you. Great presentation.
Thanks. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Matt. So one last question in the chat, and then we'll pass it on to John. It's actually from Tim, fellow speaker. He's asking, are creators of this platform meeting with policymakers to help them use this tool?
Yeah, I don't know the specifics around that, but the team is relatively small, and a lot of the team members are data scientists, and they have different account managers that work with the subscription for the subscribed users. So, you know, if the University of Pennsylvania or Jefferson Hospital are subscribers of PolicyMap, I think there's kind of direct access there. But in terms of marketing directly to policymakers or the city of Philadelphia, I'm not exactly sure.
Very powerful. Thank you. It's an awesome tool. Well done.
Thanks.
Yeah, I can't wait to test it out after this.
Yeah, you could spend a lot of time in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again, Lizzie. This was really great.
Thank you.
All right, so John, are you ready to take over the next presentation?
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. And it looks like you're not sharing your video.
Yeah, can you, I'm not, it's, one sec. Yeah, can you access me the video? And it's saying that host has stopped the video.
Oh, let me fix that for you.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're
right.
good.
Good. Thanks, John.
Yeah, no problem. Just give me a minute. Yeah, okay. So yeah, hi everyone. So I'm John Rodrigues. I work as a UX designer for this company called Toca Football. We are into soccer training, working towards creating better user experience for soccer training, and then also working towards gamification. This project was my thesis project done at Jefferson. So a little bit control over the concept exploration and the research methods and things like that. So I want to take you all through this journey. I went through, it was a 1-year-long journey. So ZOZO is an immersive learning platform designed for occupational therapy students. It's thoughtfully designed to help them build clinical reasoning skills. So this product addresses the problem area of students feeling unprepared, fear of anxiety, and lack of context understanding before entering the clinical setting. So I didn't know much about healthcare or VR or things like that. So I reached out to everyone in Philadelphia. That's where I found XR Lab from DICE Group. And Tim is here, and I worked with Blackstone and occupational therapy department at Jefferson, who kind of guided me throughout the process. So in order to execute this product, I followed double diamond research methods, starting from discovery to coming up with the solution and iterating from the feedback we get from the users. So the discovery, I started with conducting user research, and I also did secondary research where I found a study done with 1,002 students. Even though there was like a field work that is available, but there was little description around explaining the process and the context understanding. I met Cecilia and Sam, who are the doctoral students who constantly gave me insights, and they were the main stakeholders. So we went to the library, we put this board out there. It's like, hey, we are looking for students to talk to. And then we formed a focus group of 10 users, and the goal of the research was to understand their goals, needs, and challenges. And I was able to gather amazing insights from this interview. And one student mentioned that, you can tell me whatever you want, you can walk me through the steps, but I actually need to do the process in order to understand it better. So I ended up like collecting a lot of data, and it was like very intense to like synthesize this. So I used card sorting method and listed out all the problems area horizontally and vertically. And I saw where the more pattern is emerging in terms of the problem area. So I came to this problem statement saying that the OT students had to commit too much to memory, which resulted into fear and unpreparedness while working in the clinical setting. 80% of the students mentioned they experienced lack of training, hands-on training during the coursework. So the question I had was, how might we increase accessibility to experiential-based learning for occupational therapy students to reduce fear and unpreparedness before the clinical settings? So based on all this information and context understanding, I started sketching out ideas and brainstorming with the stakeholders and colleagues and things like that. And I was like sketching all over the place, whichever paper I find, and came up with this hypothesis that it's gonna be a virtual reality platform that will help students prepare better before entering the clinical settings. And so there were too many ideas. I had to like scope it down. So we used this Kano model in order to come up what are the must-have features and won't have features. And we came up with like it having interactive quizzes, immersive learning platform, analytics to keep track of the progress. I am an engineer turned designer, so I had a lot of biases towards technology. So I wanted to like identify what are the riskiest assumptions I'm making, what are my personal biases in it. So we used risk evaluation matrix, and we found the assumptions were that this product will address the user's need, and it will help them to feel confident before entering the clinical setting. And this will help medical schools reduce training cost. And in order to measure and evaluate if the product is actually addressing a need, and this hypothesis I made is solving the user's problem, I created a stop motion video, and this video was structured based on this hooked model of what triggers the users, what are their actions, what are they investing, and what their rewards are. I'll just skim through this video.
Meet Kim. Kim is an occupational therapy student. Her
it showed her struggles and then how the solution could potentially help. So this video kind of helped to get some conversation going among stakeholders. And I found that this concept did address the user's problem. However, there was feedback around what's actually happening in VR. We kind of want to know the specifics of it. So it kind of created a bit of excitement about what's going to happen in the VR experience. So I conducted contextual inquiry. I went to the site. I wanted to go to the simulation lab, but some legal thing, like I couldn't do that. So I sat and saw the videos. The director of OT program let me watch the videos, and there was an actual trainer who kind of trains these students. And my goals were to understand their journey, the opportunities, and the challenges they face. And I also had a chance to visit a simulation lab around Philadelphia, and they were using 360 video to create this training. And I asked them, like, what's good about that? Why 360 video? So they shared this insight of it helps students to look around and gives a sense of environment, which are a critical part of their decision making during the training process. So I had this 5 pages of notes on my journal, and then I put everything and this on the sticky board. And I started grouping them based on similar categories. And I saw this pattern and found these categories. It had categories of students had to build observational skills, body posture, understanding, empathy towards the patient, and constant communication with the patient. This all summed up to build them clinical reasoning skills. And this was the key learning element of the experience they're going to go through. So again, I went to my sketching book, and I was sketching this all over the wall. This was at the DICE group. I was sketching all over the wall my ideas and taking feedback from all the stakeholders and things like that. And we came up with this gamified concept of having level 1, which is more observational, level 2, which is interactive, and level 3, which is highly immersive environment. So I mapped out the entire journey and the experience the users go through. And this also answering the question of where the product actually fits in someone's workflow. And we came up from this research that this is not to replace an actual patient transfer, because there's a sense of weight and other things that goes into. It was a bridging the gap between just reading through the books and before going to the actual clinical settings. So I started storyboarding based on my research and the flow I created. So the level 1 had this interactive quizzes where it will ask them questions, and the level 2, it will tell them if they select a wrong answer, it will take them to another path, and it will show them how to do it right. So it was more of like give them a feedback in the level 2 training. And the level 3 was highly immersive, and they could go into this immersive world and where they could see the patient transfer happening. Created in order to create a brand experience around this product. At this stage, we still were not clear about what the product is, but we wanted to create like a good vibe and feel for it. So we created this mood board of it, the product being more educational, trustable, empathetic, delightful, and futuristic. So everyone were asking, what's the story behind ZOZO? And it's actually a spelling mistake of 2020, but I remember Tim telling me in the meeting, John, sell it. So I made this animation. This is made in Keynote. So ZOZO is delightful and for occupational therapy students, and made in 2020. That's where the name ZOZO. And so working on the product strategy, I did work on the business model, and we came up with this subscription-based model. And we were planning to sell this to on like annual fees for the students. Had very hypothetical dreams of making like millions, but I know it's not gonna work that way, but then it just was a model we were experimenting and potentially set a direction for the product strategy. So I also had an opportunity to interact with people at Stanford, and I was at the DICE group, and then I also founded certain similar product, but they were into like video based and quizzes based and not VR based. So there was a potential to have a unique selling proposition for this product. So going to the creating the digital product, and so I started sketching out wireframes and then the user interface, and created this entire the platform for the, so they can know what the product is about, what are the learning modules, and they are keeping track of their progress and things like that. So VR was not something that many people were familiar with. So, and there was a lot of educational components. So we created this interaction kind of a modules, which the goal was to make information more accessible through animations and interaction, so that they can easily understand what's happening. So working on that, we created this application because not everyone could afford a VR headset. We wanted to make this learning more accessible. So we created this app design, and it has a delightful animation, and they can enter through the university login, and then they get a confirmation email on their the university, and they can go through different modules, and then they can filter out whichever modules they want to complete. And also for people who do not know how to use it, so there was like a how-to guide section where you know how to do this in VR. So yeah, so it had 360 video inside it and all that stuff. So there was a community section for them to like talk and share and learn from each other. I also created this, transferred this app into an actual phone where I could actually put this out in the user's hand and test it. This is all prototype, it is not in a development phase, and it was quite rewarding to do that because I was able to change certain things that didn't help users to reach their goals quickly. Like example, this slide interaction was replaced with tap-based gesture interaction, which kind of helped users to reach the goals with minimal number of steps. So I did experiment with various prototyping methods because there was no framework or structure we could go with like VR. So I was just exploring with whatever cardboard or toys I have. So this was a failed prototype. So we did body storming with some of my friends. So I put them in a room, made them act out based on the storyboards, took the 360 camera and recorded it. I gave them a tough time. And and it was transferred to the phone so that the users could see actually what's happening and sense of environment, and they could watch that in the Google Cardboard. This is behind the philosophy is like show, not tell. And we wanted to show that what actual experience the users will go through. So going to the VR experience, so the product had come to two directions. One is mobile based and one is the Oculus based. And so in order to create that highly immersive environment in Oculus, I started sketching out various concepts of user interfaces. I went to Tilt Brush and started brainstorming in VR. These tools are not meant for wireframing or prototyping. I was just like hacking through whatever I get in order to get the sense of scale and things like that. So then I created this journey, the UI journey. The users go through the modules they see and how they have to sign in through university login and things like that. So this was the most amazing part because I took the storyboards I created, and then also these interfaces were made in Sketch. So I imported them in this Gravity Sketch. Gravity Sketch is not meant for this. And this was the existing 3D models I took and created this, the journey they go through and the learning experience the students will go through. I felt like a movie director inside a VR. It was a very different experience. And then this is the final concept video. So it tells them to start, and then
in this module, you will be handling a physically disabled patient who recently had a stroke and is being
it shows the patient transfer experience
over to the wheelchair.
And then if the users kind of select the wrong
patient
path, then it tells them how to
the patient
do
by
it
the
right.
shoulder.
So it was giving them the feedback of this, they could do whatever mistakes they want in VR without risking a patient. So this is where the COVID happens, and I had big plans for my usability study, and this was another how might we kind of a question. And then so we did all user testing on virtually. So I framed the question asking based on these key words of like observational body posture, context understanding. I got my stakeholders on the Zoom call, and you can see the stakeholders looks very happy. So we created the Google form and asked them to fill them based on the video I showed them. So I was able to get a good amount of data, and this kind of helped me understand which part of the experience could be improved and how can we prioritize that improvement and things like that. So I was able to validate two quantitative data. However, the most valuable data lied in understanding the qualitative testimonials and things. So the students were mentioning that could be distractions, that could be sense of surprises, and that someone said like the instructor could be transparent. So I was like learning a lot about the patient transfer. This kind of helped me like decide what could be improved. Some of the positive feedback where the users mentioned that this is indeed a biggest problem. And one student mentioned that this feels low pressure. It is something that lets students get over anxiety. And one student mentioned this is so much clearer than just reading through books and watching photos and things like that. So, and this was the conclusion and testimonial one of the users shared.
Hi everyone, I'm Cecilia, a doctoral candidate of occupational therapy at Thomas Jefferson University. When I first met John Rodrigues, I was instantly floored by his willingness to learn and his dedication for the profession. So currently, Jefferson students are being offered what's called a standardized patient experience, which can be pretty stressful because you walk into a room not knowing the diagnosis and what you might need to do with the patient, and there's an actor or actress. So you have 3 to 5 minutes working with this patient, and it's recorded. So you have your professors grading you on your bedside manner, your clinical expertise.
So she also mentioned about during the COVID situation and all that stuff, it's so much helpful when they don't have access to lab and things where it gets difficult to get getting this patient simulation training and things like that. So based on the qualitative and the quantitative data I captured, I was able to say that my proposed solution did address the user's need. It would potentially help reduce stress and anxiety before entering the clinical setting, and could make experiential-based education accessible for all. And my thesis revolved around this entire quote of, you can tell me what you want, if you can show me and I will see, but I need to actually do it, experiences in order to learn. So this is the quote revolved around this product, and this is what ZOZO is about. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Awesome, John. Thanks so much. This was a really comprehensive project you did. Really impressed.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we went through the Q&A time a little bit. Would you mind answering the questions in the Q&A feature while we do the raffle?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, awesome. Thanks again. Really, really awesome project. All right, so I think I'm going to pass it to Michelle to run the raffle.
Alrighty. Thanks, Ben. Thank you, John. So for our raffle winners, winner number 1 winning the Rosenfeld book called Figure It Out, Getting from Information to Understanding is Bailey Cunningham. Bailey, are you still here? Looks like you are. Sweet. So we'll be getting in touch. Hi. So we'll be getting in touch with you afterward, Bailey, just to get your mailing information. Congratulations. Winner number 2 is Mina. And you'll be taking home the Playful Design, Creating Game Experiences in Everyday Interfaces. I think, Mina, you're still here too, right? Let me just scroll down here. Oh no, do we have Mina? Oh, there you are. Yay. Okay, cool. And then third, winning Doorbells, Danger, and Dead Batteries, User Research War Stories, is Kevin O'Hara. Kevin, are you here? I think you are. Okay. Just give a message in the chat here, Kevin, just to make sure you're here. Hey, okay, cool. All right, awesome. Congratulations to our raffle winners. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight. We definitely appreciate your time. I'll pass it over to Chuong for closing statements.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Michelle. Well, again, Michelle is closed well. I don't know why she needed me again, but thanks everyone for joining. We appreciate your time, and again, thank you for putting your effort in all there. John, thank you for your presentation. Lindsay, Sasha, Tim, and Kim. Hopefully we can stay connected and stay safe. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks so much,
everyone.
Bye. Stay well.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.